3 days ago, something happened that received almost no national attention. Several Social Security Administration offices across the United States were operating without in-person service. Telephone assistance only. No face-to-face appointments, no walk-in support, no opportunity to sit across the desk from a representative and ask questions about your retirement benefits. For many Americans, that may not sound like a major story. After all, we live in a digital world. People bank online, shop online, file taxes online, book travel online. Why should a temporary office closure matter? The answer is simple, because Social Security is not just another government agency. It is the agency responsible for administering retirement, disability, and survivor benefits for approximately 75 million Americans. And right now, according to official data, the Social Security Administration has fewer employees serving more beneficiaries than at almost any point in modern history. Today, there is approximately one SSA employee for every 1,480 beneficiaries. Think about that number for a moment. One employee, 1,480 beneficiaries. That ratio is roughly 3 times worse than it was in the late 1960s. And while most Americans are focused on the future solvency of Social Security, there is another problem happening right now. A problem that could affect retirees long before 2032. A problem that could impact anyone trying to claim benefits. Correct an earnings record, file a disability application, replace a Social Security card, or simply get an answer from the agency. Today, we're not talking about trust fund depletion. We're not talking about Congress. We're not talking about future benefit cuts. We're talking about the operational reality of Social Security in 2026. What is happening inside the agency today? Why it happened, what it means for retirees, and most importantly, what you can do about it. I'm Michael Bennett. This is Retirement Watch, helping seniors understand their benefits. Let's begin. Imagine for a moment that you are 64 years old. You've worked for more than 4 decades. You are planning to retire next year. You've carefully reviewed your finances. You've estimated your monthly expenses. You've calculated your expected Social Security benefit. You've spent years preparing for this transition. Then one day you discover a problem. Perhaps your earnings record contains an error. Maybe several years of income are missing. Maybe your birth date was entered incorrectly decades ago. Maybe you need clarification about survivor benefits. Maybe you're unsure whether to claim now or wait. You call the Social Security Administration. You spend hours trying to reach someone. The phone system is overloaded. You wait. You call back. You wait again. Eventually, you decide to visit your local office, only to discover appointments are limited. Walk-in services are restricted, and the nearest office may now serve a much larger geographic area than before. This isn't a hypothetical scenario for many Americans. It's becoming increasingly common, and the numbers help explain why. According to official reports, the Social Security Administration lost approximately 7,000 employees between early 2025 and early 2026. That represents the largest single-year staffing reduction in the agency's modern history. 7,000 employees gone in roughly 1 year. To understand the scale of that reduction, imagine a large corporation suddenly losing thousands of experienced workers while simultaneously being asked to serve millions of additional customers. Most businesses would struggle under those circumstances. The Social Security Administration faces an even greater challenge because its workload is highly specialized. New employees cannot simply walk in and perform these jobs immediately. Understanding Social Security regulations takes time. Understanding retirement calculations takes time. Understanding disability eligibility takes time. Understanding Medicare enrollment rules takes time. Training takes time. Experience takes time. And that is where the problem becomes even more serious. The agency didn't simply lose employees. It lost experience, a tremendous amount of experience. Historically, when employees retired or left the agency, new workers were hired and trained to replace them. The system wasn't perfect, but it created continuity. Knowledge was transferred, institutional memory was preserved. The next generation of employees learned from the previous one. But something unusual happened in 2025. Hiring essentially stopped. In a normal year, the agency hires thousands of new employees. In 2025, fewer than 100 people were hired. Less than 100. For an organization serving 75 million Americans. As a result, the pipeline of future workers has been severely disrupted. By the beginning of 2026, fewer than 850 employees were in their first 2 years of service. That statistic may not sound important at first, but it means there are very few new employees being trained to replace the experienced workers who continue to retire. Imagine a hospital that stops training nurses. Imagine an airline that stops training pilots. Imagine a school system that stops hiring teachers. Eventually, the consequences become unavoidable. The same principle applies here. The Social Security Administration is facing a workforce challenge that has been building for years and accelerated dramatically over the past 18 months. And these losses have not been distributed evenly. Some states have been affected more severely than others. In Wyoming, staffing declined by approximately 19%. In Missouri, roughly 14%. In Wisconsin, approximately 14%. Across dozens of states, local offices suddenly found themselves trying to serve the same number of people with significantly fewer employees. That creates pressure. Pressure on managers, pressure on frontline workers, pressure on beneficiaries, pressure on the system itself. But staffing reductions are only part of the story. There is another layer that receives far less attention. Leadership. When most people think about government agencies, they focus on frontline employees. The people answering phones, the people processing applications, the people serving customers. Those positions are obviously important. But large organizations also depend on experienced managers and senior executives. These are the individuals who understand complex regulations. They supervise regional operations. They resolve unusual cases. They coordinate policy implementation. They provide institutional knowledge. In 2025, the Social Security Administration lost more than 1/3 of its career senior executives. More than 1/3. That is an extraordinary number. Many of these individuals spent decades inside the agency. They understood the systems. They understood the rules. They understood the challenges. And replacing that level of experience is extremely difficult. Experience cannot be downloaded. It cannot be automated overnight. And it cannot be instantly recreated once it leaves. This leadership loss matters because the Social Security system is incredibly complex. The average retiree may only interact with a small portion of the system. But behind the scenes, there are thousands of regulations governing retirement benefits, disability benefits, survivor benefits, Medicare enrollment, overpayments, appeals, earnings records, and countless other issues. Experienced leadership helps navigate those complexities. When leadership declines, operational challenges often become more difficult to solve. And that brings us to the next problem, the backlog. Because ultimately, staffing shortages are not important because of the number itself. They are important because of the consequences. And the consequences are showing up in the agency's workload. Today, the Social Security Administration is dealing with millions of pending transactions. Millions. Applications waiting to be processed. Address changes. Name changes. Benefit updates. Earnings corrections. Administrative actions. Routine tasks that beneficiaries often assume happen automatically. Many of these transactions are not emergencies, but collectively they create a growing queue. And when that queue grows large enough, delays become unavoidable. A retiree waiting for an earnings correction experiences that delay. A disability claimant experiences that delay. A survivor applying for benefits experiences that delay. Every backlog represents a real person waiting for a real answer. That human reality is often lost when discussions focus only on statistics. But every statistic represents someone's life, someone's retirement, someone's disability claim, someone's family, someone's future income, and that is why these numbers deserve attention. Because unlike the 2032 trust fund debate, this issue is happening now, today, this month, this year, not 6 years from now, not 10 years from now, right now. And yet, most Americans remain unaware of it. They hear discussions about Social Security solvency. They hear debates about Congress. They hear projections about future benefit reductions. But they rarely hear discussions about the operational capacity of the agency itself. That capacity matters because even the best benefit program in the world depends on an agency capable of administering it. And today, the Social Security Administration is under significant operational strain. The next question is obvious. How did this happen? How did one of the largest federal agencies in America arrive at this point? To answer that question, we need to look at three major forces that collided at the same time. And once you understand those forces, the current situation becomes much easier to understand. We'll examine those three forces next. So how did the Social Security Administration arrive at this point? The answer is not a single decision. It is not a single administration. It is not a single budget cycle. What happened is the result of several forces converging at the same time. And when those forces collided, the strain on the system became impossible to ignore. The first force was workforce reduction. But the way that reduction occurred is important. Many people hear about staffing declines and immediately imagine layoffs. That is not primarily what happened here. Much of the reduction came through voluntary separation programs. Employees were offered incentives to leave, retirement packages, buyouts, voluntary departures. On paper, that may sound relatively harmless. After all, if someone voluntarily chooses to leave, why would that create a crisis? The answer is experience. When organizations offer buyouts, they cannot perfectly control who accepts them. Often, the employees most capable of leaving are the employees with the longest careers, the employees with the largest pensions, the employees with the deepest institutional knowledge, the employees who know how to solve unusual problems, the employees everyone else goes to when a difficult case appears. Those employees are frequently the most attractive candidates for early retirement. As a result, an organization can lose not only workers, but decades of accumulated expertise. Imagine a mechanic who has repaired the same aircraft for 30 years. Imagine a nurse who has worked in the same hospital for 25 years. Imagine a teacher who has spent 3 decades in the classroom. Replacing the position is possible. Replacing the experience is much harder. That is exactly the challenge facing the SSA today. The second force was reassignment. As staffing gaps appeared, the agency faced a difficult choice: hire replacements quickly or move existing employees into critical vacancies. Because hiring slowed dramatically, many workers were reassigned. People trained for one function suddenly found themselves performing another. Employees who had spent years specializing in a particular area were moved elsewhere to fill urgent needs. This strategy can work temporarily. Organizations often use it during emergencies, but it creates trade-offs. Every employee reassigned leaves another position partially uncovered. And when enough reassignments occur simultaneously, service quality can begin to decline across multiple departments. Think of it like moving firefighters from one station to another. The station receiving additional firefighters becomes stronger, but the station losing those firefighters becomes weaker. The problem has not disappeared. It has simply moved. The third force was technology, and this is perhaps the most important factor of all. For years, Policymakers and administrators have recognized that Social Security relies on technology systems that need modernization. That assessment is not controversial. Most experts agree that modernization is necessary. The challenge is timing. The SSA has increasingly embraced what is often called a digital-first strategy. The basic idea is simple: more services online, fewer office visits, more automation, greater efficiency, faster processing. In theory, that sounds reasonable. And in many situations, it works. Millions of Americans already use online banking, online shopping, online tax filing, online healthcare portals. Digital government services are not inherently problematic. The problem occurs when staffing is reduced before the replacement systems are fully operational. That appears to be part of what happened here. The workforce shrank, but some of the technology systems intended to offset that reduction experienced delays. As a result, the agency entered a transition period with fewer people and incomplete modernization. And transition periods are often where organizations experience the greatest stress. Now let's talk about what this means for retirees, because at the end of the day, that is what matters most. Not staffing charts, not management structures, not organizational diagrams. What matters is how these changes affect real people. Let's return to our earlier example. Imagine a worker approaching retirement, perhaps age 64, perhaps age 65. Maybe retirement is 6 months away, maybe 1 year, maybe 18 months. For decades, this person has paid Social Security taxes. Every paycheck, every year. The expectation has always been straightforward. When retirement arrives, the system will be there. And in most cases, it still is. Benefits continue to be paid. Checks continue to arrive. Deposits continue to appear. That part of the system remains remarkably reliable. But the challenge emerges when something requires intervention, when something requires assistance, when something requires correction. Because not every retirement claim is simple. Not every earnings record is perfect. Not every situation fits neatly into a standard category. Consider earnings records. Your future benefit is based largely on your lifetime earnings history. That history matters. A missing year of income matters. An incorrectly reported amount matters. An administrative error matters. And while such errors are not common, they do happen. When they do, beneficiaries must work with the SSA to correct them. That process often requires documentation, verification, communication, review, time. If agency backlogs increase, those corrections may take longer. And if someone discovers an issue shortly before retirement, the delay can become particularly stressful. Now consider disability claims. This is one of the most vulnerable populations served by the agency. Individuals applying for disability benefits are often facing extraordinary challenges. Serious medical conditions, loss of income, uncertainty about the future, financial pressure. Many cannot simply wait indefinitely, yet the disability hearing backlog has increased significantly. That means longer waits, more uncertainty, and greater strain on people already facing difficult circumstances. Then there are survivors, widows, widowers, family members dealing with loss. For them, Social Security is not an abstract policy discussion. It is immediate, personal, emotional. Benefits can represent critical financial support during a period of grief. Administrative delays become more than an inconvenience. They become an additional burden during an already difficult time. This is why operational performance matters. Not because government efficiency is an interesting topic, but because real people depend on these services every day. Another group facing unique challenges is rural beneficiaries. Many rural communities have fewer nearby offices, longer travel distances, less reliable broadband access, fewer transportation options. For someone living in a large metropolitan area, an office closure may be inconvenient. For someone living in a rural county, it may require hours of travel. That difference matters, particularly for older Americans, particularly for those with health limitations, particularly for those who depend on in-person assistance. Now let's talk about the future. Because while today's situation is important, viewers naturally want to know what happens next. The truth is that nobody knows with certainty, but we can think in terms of scenarios. Scenario 1, the optimistic scenario. The modernization systems are successfully deployed. The technology performs as intended. Online services become easier to use. Processing becomes more efficient. Backlogs gradually decline. Service quality improves. Not immediately, not overnight, but steadily over time. This outcome is certainly possible. Technology has solved many administrative challenges in other industries. It could help here as well. Scenario 2, the stabilization scenario. This may be the most likely outcome. The systems eventually launch. Some improvements occur. Some problems remain. The agency stabilizes but does not fully recover to previous service levels. Backlogs stop growing, but they decline slowly. Beneficiaries continue experiencing delays, though perhaps less severe than today. This is not a crisis, but it is not a full recovery either. Scenario 3, the deterioration scenario. Additional budget constraints emerge. Technology deployment experiences further setbacks. Staffing challenges continue. Service quality declines further. Backlogs increase. Wait times grow longer. This is the scenario policymakers hope to avoid. Whether it occurs depends on many factors: funding decisions, technology performance, future hiring, retirement rates, and broader economic conditions. So what should retirees do right now? The good news is that there are practical steps, and unlike many policy discussions, these steps are entirely within your control. First, create a My Social Security account if you have not already done so. This may be the single most important action many viewers can take. Your account provides access to your earnings history, benefit estimates, application status information, and other valuable resources. The fewer issues that require direct intervention, the easier your experience is likely to be. Second, review your earnings record now, not next year, not when you retire, now. Many people assume their record is correct, and most of the time it is, but assumptions are not verification. Take the time to look. A few minutes today could prevent significant complications later. Third, if retirement is approaching, start earlier than you think necessary. Historically, many people began the process a few months before benefits were scheduled to begin. In the current environment, additional preparation time may be wise. Giving yourself more time creates flexibility, and flexibility reduces stress. Fourth, keep copies of important documents: tax records, employment records, benefit statements, identity documents, marriage certificates, divorce decrees when applicable. Documentation matters, especially if questions arise years later. Finally, stay informed. One of the biggest mistakes retirees make is assuming government programs never change. They do. Policies evolve, procedures change, technology changes, requirements change. The more informed you are, the better prepared you become. And preparation remains one of the most valuable forms of financial security. Here's the bottom line. The Social Security Administration is facing one of the most significant operational challenges in its modern history. Staffing has declined. Experience has declined. Backlogs have increased. Technology modernization remains incomplete. None of this means Social Security benefits are disappearing. None of this means panic is justified. And none of this means retirees should assume the system is failing. But it does mean that beneficiaries should be proactive. Review your records, create your online account, plan earlier. Stay informed and pay attention to developments over the next year, because while much of the national conversation focuses on what may happen in 2032, millions of Americans are already being affected by what is happening in 2026. And understanding that difference may help you avoid problems before they become your problems. I'm Michael Bennett. This is Retirement Watch, helping seniors understand their benefits. Thank you for watching. And remember, the more you understand today, the more prepared you'll be tomorrow.